What if I told you that your content plan is killing your business? Social media gurus tell you to follow these buckets or come up with a list of topics, but all that is doing is making you sound like a zombie, some copycat clone of the crowd. And in 2025, when the internet is so goddamn noisy, you cannot afford to sound like everyone else. It is a digital death sentence. You need a way to smash through the noise. So in this video, I'll give you the only 3 questions that I asked to come up with unique content each week. Plus, I'll give you a bonus question at the end, which can save you hundreds, if not thousands of hours of your content creation time this year. These questions are guaranteed to make you an authority in your niche. You'll attract a ton of clients, and it's going to get rid of writer's block altogether. You'll be amazed at how easy these are to use. So grab yourself a cup of tea and let's dive in. I want to begin with a quick story to make an important point. When I started 5 years ago, content plans were all the rave. You know, they'd say create your growth content and your authority content and your personality content. Hell, I've given the same prescription to my audience too. But the game has changed, right? The internet has become so much more competitive, which means the need to be unique has increased too. There is one fundamental rule that if you embraced, you will go so much further than everyone else, and that is people follow people. You need to be in the arena doing interesting things and writing about them. The more you do this, the more you'll stand out from the sea of generic content, because you actually create a deep and meaningful connection. And so when I sit to write, I just have a quick checklist with the 3 questions I'm about to show you, plus the bonus question. And then we'll wrap up with that little tip to make sure that you never ever struggle with writer's block again. Question number 1. What interesting conversations have I had recently? The best writing emerges from conversation. You know, the thing with writing online is that you are having a one-on-one conversation with thousands of people. And so when you're going through content plans, you're sort of trying to guess what you think will work, when actually the easiest way to do it is go speak to real people and see what sticks. So let's make this practical. Throughout your week, you're going to talk to clients, friends, family, etc. The stories that you repeat often, or the ideas that you repeat often, those are reflecting your strong beliefs, right? What's actually on your mind at the moment. And so I guarantee to you that that will also catch other people's attention too. And the stories that people enjoy hearing are the stories that people will enjoy reading. And so really, you just put it out there and then see like, hey, they thought that was quite funny, or man, they thought that was pretty cool. Let's go turn that into content. And the great bit about that is that you can almost have this story-based hook where you're like, last week I was doing XYZ with XYZ, and then we went and did this. Okay, and that way, every bit of content has this sort of unique feel to it where you're not just shouting from a podium, but you're a real person living a real life. So there are 3 conversation sources that you need to pay attention to in particular. The first and most important are the conversations that you have with clients. My mistake early on was that I hated having people booked into my calendar, and so I never spoke about any of the work I was doing with my clients. It's a damn stupid idea, because there are very few people that are actually doing client work, and so if you want to be seen as an authority, right, you need to be sharing about why you're in the arena with people. And so when you're working with clients, pay attention to every question they ask, pay attention to all the advice that you give, if they email in with anything. All of that becomes the nuggets for great quality content. Now, if you don't have any clients, or you're not really chatting to them that much this week, the next level are audience conversations. So people are going to ask you questions in your comments. They're going to ask you questions in your DMs. If you're smart with your newsletter strategy, you can set up automated emails where you'll be like, hey, what are you working on? What are you struggling with? Anything I can help with? You can put them in after your product purchases. You can basically set up all of these feedback collection points that all feeds into one area, and you create a very cool content flywheel, because you literally just need to look and be like, what questions were I asked? Okay, you write the answers in depth via email, therefore you're over delivering, and people are like, damn, that guy really gives a shit. And then you take that and you post it on social media with minor editing for a hook. And then that third source of conversations, as I mentioned before, is just friends and family, right? Or just the stuff you're doing in actual real life, because there's something about when you're talking behind a computer that people turn into zombies. But when you're having dinner, when you're going for a walk, when you're at the gym and you start saying certain things, this is where we really get to see the authentic you. And so you really want to keep your mind worrying about, like, what am I saying here? And then start reflecting that back out as a writer. Now, the key for conversations is that you must always tie it back to the transformation for your one true fan, and you can actually get quite creative here. So for example, I've just got off a call with a friend. I've recently moved to Paraguay. I'm dating, I'm about to go dating, and I'm going on dates with girls that speak not a single word of English, okay? And that is absolutely terrifying. And I thought, I'm not going to do that. That sounds like hell. And he just said to me, it's a fun experiment. Fuck it, we'll go find out. And that is such a brilliant attitude to have when you are a writer too, right? You can sit there and plan the perfect offer and wonder if this is going to work or that's going to work. Why don't you just go find out? The worst case, you learn something. The best case, well, we'll leave that to your imagination. Now, I haven't actually written that post yet because I've literally just hopped on here, but let me show you a post that has come as a result from conversation on my LinkedIn. Here's one. Your advice sucks. The complaint hits like a punch in the gut. It's last Tuesday. I've just sent an email and a subscriber replied explaining he was an introverted writer and he didn't want to be another entrepreneur spamming the inbox. Here's what I told him, okay? So a really easy way to translate conversations into information. Now, the next question is my favorite, but before I show you that, one quick note, it doesn't matter how many questions you answer. If your writing sucks, no one's going to care. So that's why I built the Sucks framework. This is a dead simple copywriting framework that is guaranteed to make your writing more persuasive in about 3 minutes it takes to read it. It'll work for emails, social media, basically anywhere you want your reader to pay attention. It's free. You can get it below. Let's take a look at the next question, which is, what have I done recently that is interesting? So A-grade content is unique, it's useful, and it's undeniable. And so when you write about the stuff that you are doing, you tick all 3 boxes immediately. Nobody can compete with you at being you. And I like to think of it as leaving breadcrumbs for your audience to follow, taking someone from follower to fan. It's quite an interesting effect, but the more you write about yourself, the more someone feels like they get to know you. Okay, so sometimes when a client goes on a call, I actually had one today and he was like, man, it's really weird to speak to you because I've been reading your stuff for years. If you compare someone who never talks about themselves, it's always just telling people what to do, versus you showing them what you did, okay, the amount of relatability, the depth of relationship is considerably higher, and the writer with the best relationships win. And so for that reason, you must share your wins, big and small, right? If you don't become your own cheerleader, no one will ever pay attention. And the cool bit about that is by writing about your wins, you actually turn them into more wins because people pay more attention. Some people think you have to wait until you're having these huge victories to start talking about it. That's a load of crap, right? It's like trying to light a fire with a bunch of twigs without realizing you've got gasoline sitting right next to you. For example, I started sharing my journey from day one, the fact that I couldn't find clients, the fact that I couldn't make any money, all of this stuff, but then it became super interesting because I sorted that crap out. That leads me to the next point. Talk about your mistakes, failures, fears, and doubts. But don't make this mistake. Right? People think, oh, I've got to be vulnerable, so let's talk about my screw-ups, right? But if your screw-ups are putting off potential clients, then my friend, you are screwing up. Okay, you don't write about the negatives until you have a solution. And so let's say you do make a mistake, but you turn that mistake into something really cool. That's great content. If you make a mistake and be like, hey, I just screwed up, that's crap content. Please do not write it. It makes me cringe so hard when I see it. And the third way I like to think about this question is, what experiments am I running? Experiments are really cool because they're highly curious, right? So most people only talk about what they did. But if you say, hey, over the next month, 2 months, 3 months, I'm going to try do this thing and I'm going to show you how it goes, then people really, really begin to pay attention. Now, let's have a little look at another social media post. So this one, last month, I went traveling for 4 weeks. I ran an experiment. Is it possible to build your business whilst exploring the world without falling behind? Here are 3 observations and my conclusion. All right, so this is actually quite a long thread because it's got loads of pictures. It's showing my entire journey, but super interesting, right? Like someone is going to find out all about traveling, all about this sort of stuff, and how the whole conclusion of it basically is, hell yeah, you can. You just need smart systems. Let's move on to the third question. And again, super powerful. It's something that people are constantly overlooking, right? It's what has made me feel something. The point behind great writing is to create emotion. Put yourself in your reader's shoes. Okay, they're scrolling, they're bored, they're in this slumber. The reason why we consume content is because we want to be excited. We want to be pulled out of our normal world and into something that inspires, motivates, angers us, whatever. We just want to bloody feel something. And so what you want to do is pay attention to how you feel and turn that into a mirror, because how you feel seeps through into the page. Now, we have positive emotions and negative emotions, so you need to pay attention to joy, to gratitude, to excitement, to curiosity. Curiosity, by the way, is one of my favorite, because if something fascinates you, it's bound to fascinate your reader too. And the more you follow your curiosity, the deeper you go down rabbit holes, and you end up getting to the fringes of knowledge, okay, where people really aren't going. And that's when people think that guy or girl is a very interesting writer. But negative emotions are the ones that really get people going, right? So you have fear, doubt, anger, frustration, all of these things. But just be a little bit cautious here, right? Because we have this negativity bias, it's very tempting to just talk negative all the time. But it's a bit like salt, right? You use a little bit, it tastes great. But if you use too much, it's really going to ruin the meal. In this case, the meal is your brand. And if you're always pessimistic, people are like, bloody hell, man, go step outside, touch grass, have a little bit of fun. And so let's have a look at another post. This one, the best habit I've started this year, daily gratitude calls. Every morning, my best friends and I have a 10-minute call where we talk about our small wins and what we're grateful for. Again, something interesting that I'm doing. We've got a picture of it. Okay, we've got a picture of me and my boobs out. It's all really good. I had a friend text me saying that this got sent to him from a person I have no clue about. And the reason why that happens is because it's so focused on the joy, right? It's focused on how people feel. And I guarantee someone's read that before. I would love to do something like that. So, conversation, action, emotion. I mentioned about having a fourth question that's just such a bloody good time saver, and I wish that I was asking myself this 5 years ago, and it is, what have I already produced that I can repurpose? So I had this weird thing when I started writing online, like maybe a bit of ego behind it, where I was like, every week I had to come up with something new. The problem is, if you're always doing 0 to 1, it is creatively bloody exhausting. And if it's just for social media content in particular, that stuff dies in moments, right? It exists for a brief flash in the fry pan of existence. And the thing is, only 1 to 3% of your audience bloody see the stuff anyway. So why would you not repost your best work? People never complain about hearing their favorite songs on repeat. So I can give you a very basic example on Twitter. When I have something that performs pretty well, my VA will automatically schedule it to go out 3 months later. But I will also look at it and think, okay, how can we express this from a slightly different angle? So one example is curiosity, which you've just heard me rant on about. But look, curiosity is one of the most underrated tools for success. Pursuing curiosity in a listicle. Curiosity is like fire. The more fuel you give it, the brighter the blaze. Don't follow the crowd, follow your curiosity. The secret to authenticity is to follow your curiosity. Comfort is a disease, curiosity is the cure. The only North Star worth following is your curiosity. My point here is that all of these ideas are so goddamn easy to think of, because I'm not going like, what am I going to write about? I'm just like, I know my audience likes to hear about curiosity. I know I'm curious about curiosity, so let's make that happen. Now, let's swing back. The whole point of this repurposing thing is to make your words work harder. Every word you own is an asset. And so you can use these to build your brand and business day and night tirelessly. For example, it's very good during a busy period. So I'm writing a book at the moment, right? And that takes up a lot of creative energy. So I told my assistant to go find my top 30 posts from the past 6 months, put it all into one document, and then I went through it. It took about 15 minutes. I cut out the ones that don't really work anymore. I changed the hooks, made them a little bit better, and then I said, great, now let's post 2 of those per week. I already write 2 emails per week, and we already have an AI prompt that turns those emails into social media posts. So now that's 4 posts per week already sorted, and now I just need to write 2 posts per week based on the 3 questions that I've asked. I did that over, I think it took about 10 hours. I wrote about 50 posts, and so last I checked, we're done with social media content for about 3 to 4 months. And the cool bit about that is, because I am writing a book, we'll find that once I've got this, there's 100,000 100,000 words there, that guess what happens? It gets turned into content. And so that's what we call a flywheel effect, right? So you see this compounding curve, things begin to take off. And so when you're starting out, if you're struggling with time, etc., don't think about the time it takes to produce the words now. Think about all the time you're buying back when you start introducing smart writing systems. Now, one final note, all of these questions will come crumbling down if you don't do this next habit, and that is treating the collection of ideas as if your craft depends upon it, because it does. With so much noise, the writer with the best ideas wins. And if you are just asking these questions and you're staring at the blank page on a Monday morning and you're a bit tired, it's always going to be quite difficult. Instead, the key is to really to train your mind to ask these questions constantly as you are going about life, because your best ideas are never going to come from sitting behind the computer. They're going to come from living in the outside world. And so you want to collect notes like a squirrel collects nuts. And I mean this very seriously. So when I was seeing my ex-girlfriend, she knew that no matter what we were doing, if we're on a date, if we're on a walk, if I whip my phone out, I'm not on social media, I'm not doing anything like that. I've just had an idea and I've put it down. Because here is the truth. If you do not write down an idea immediately, you will lose it indefinitely. Now, what you'll write down, 90% of it will be a load of crap. That's cool, because you're looking for the gold amongst the dirt. And so and you don't need a complicated note-taking system, by the way. You just need somewhere to list all of your ideas so that you're already answering those 3 questions. So let me just show you mine for an example. It's called The Brain, right? And I just note stuff. So Tim Ferriss studied all the copywriting stuff. Copywriting is the key to unlocking your dreams. I'm running a promotional copywriting product. That was the hook of it. Why curiosity will set you apart. The difference between surviving and thriving as a writer. Money made miserably will never set you free. All of these ideas are just coming to me based on what I've read, based on what I've seen, based on the conversations that I have had. So if you are struggling with writer's block, the reason is you are not taking note-taking seriously. These 3 questions, repurpose your content, take all these ideas, and I guarantee to you, you will stand out in the sea of noise. And by the way, I mentioned earlier that great content is unique, useful, and undeniable. I created another video showing how you can use that for every single piece of content you produce. You can watch that here. Cheers for your time.